Hi, good morning, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Straight Talk with Stevie Mack. I'm your host, Stevie Mack. And today we have a special guest. I call her my little sister, a big creative force for the millennials. She has a blog she just started called the Millenial Perspective. She's also a very creative person and an advocate for social change, especially in our youth. Today I want to welcome to our Straight Talk today, Monique Hamler. How you doing, Monique?
Bro. I'm doing well.
Good. So
Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
Oh, please. I'm excited that you decided to come on. I'm very excited to have you as well. So listen, I know your grandmother, your grandfather, I know your parents. I know you probably since you were born. I know you a while. But in the last few years, I've also seen you develop and blossom into a activist, an advocate, an educator of sorts, as well as a creative force. Can you tell the people out there who don't know you as well as I do, some of maybe just a little bit of who you are?
Wow, it's interesting that you asked that question because I was in a workshop and the facilitator said, "Can you describe yourself without using titles?" And I was like, "Ooh." Like that's that's a really tough thing because, you know, in society, kind of trained to introduce ourselves with a title like, "Hi, I am an educator. Hi, I'm a wife or a mom," or whatever the case may be. We're just so used to doing that. So I really sat and thought about that. Like, who am I? Who am I without a title? So as I thought about it, I was like, okay. So I'll describe myself as an eccentric human being who loves God and people. When I say eccentric, I mean like a person that cannot be boxed or labeled because it's like we're ever changing, ever evolving, and ever growing. So that's why I like to call myself eccentric. I am an innovator, an encourager. And I'm a person that values community, I value service, and I value people and love.
Definitely.
But if we have to talk about who I am with titles, I am a blogger now. I work in education. I do leadership within the young adults in my church. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
Nice. So I remember, of course, I knew you from church, Little Rock Baptist Church, where your grandfather, late C.B. Dawson, was our pastor. And also know your grandmother, Lady Dawson, know your whole family, right? And I know you, since a young lady, voice had this creative aspect, right? I always saw you were a writer, dabbled into poetry, I know. You were a big B2K fan, right? So I always going back to the Sunday school.
Number one fan.
Yeah.
Everyone know.
I remember the Sunday school team. I remember. So, and to see you, I read some of your blog. For those, can you tell us the title of your blog and just a little bit of what it's about?
So the blog.
Well, just for people out there who don't know, I don't want to assume anything. What is a blog? Can you just tell people that first, maybe?
Oh, a blog is just what's the easiest way to describe it? It's just a written form of art. So it's just a way to express yourself. If some people do blogging in the form of the things that they are expertise in. So some people are food bloggers. They're like really into food. So they just write about food. Or if someone is a traveler, they'll just write about traveling. For me, my blog is called the Millenial Perspective. It's more of a devotional blog. It kind of turned into that, though. That wasn't the original plan.
Okay.
As I was writing, it kind of turned into that. So it's the Millenial Perspective is a devotional blog that talks about life in the lens of a millennial. And I give tips on how to use those experiences to live the life God intended us to live, which is an abundant life. So I may address certain life struggles, but I highlight the solutions and I highlight ways to overcome it. The goal is to also bridge the generational gap. I feel like I was always like an advocate for millennials. I always felt like I had to defend millennials. We always seem to get a bad rap about everything, right? So this blog is kind of a way to kind of bring a positive light to us and to kind of have people from different generations see our life what we go to, because honestly, we all go through the same things in certain points. So we're all able to connect and relate. So I was hoping that this blog can kind of connect different generations, and to kind of spark conversation and just to pretty much bridge that gap between us. It's interesting. Like I get a lot of people from, what is it? Your generation, Generation X, right?
We're X.
X. So I get like Generation X and a little bit of, is it the boomers?
Baby boomers?
Baby boomers. Like I get feedback from them, which is like so exciting for me. It's like, wow, it's really connecting to them. So and all of my content it can relate to different ages and different stages of life. So
wow, really cool. And I read some of it. I've read, so we were like, oh, this is really cool. So I do see. I can't believe I'm saying, like, I feel old. I'm like, yeah, Generation X. I'm like, yeah, that's like the 90s. Like that's way back. But it is what it is. And the baby boomers, right? So we talk about that, bridging that gap, right? I know you used to dabble to filmmaking. At one point you had an interest in that, right? I know poetry, of course. Why this particular medium? Why the blog, if you will? Like I know the rapping before, but why that medium?
Well, one, I've always been an encourager, like to my friends, always been that encourager. One of my friends called me the voice of reason of the group. And then I've always been a writer. So I feel like the most authentic way for me to express myself was through the blog. I know I did dabble in film. I have a degree in film. I went to Temple University. So, but also the cool thing about the Millennial Perspective is more than a blog. And like the vision that God gave me, it expands beyond the blog. The blog is just the beginning. It's a starting point. Gotcha. And it can turn into different things. Like I can do blogs. If I wanted to tap into the film aspect of myself, I could turn it to blog, which is basically the video format of a blog. You're just doing something like this, like an interview, or just I will speak my content instead of writing it. It can turn into that. I can make events out of it. It's so many things that I can do. I could turn into a podcast. There's like so many things that can turn into. I could even my ultimate goal is to one day write a book. So you know what I'm saying? Like, so it's just a step-by-step process. I was like, let me start out with a blog and see where it goes.
Gotcha. It's almost like a foundation, if you will.
Yes.
You can build and okay, I get it. I like it. All right. So tell me, because I was exploring it, what are some of the topics that viewers and people, first of all, because I'm going to put it underneath, what's the address, if you will, or like how can people find the blog?
So the blog is www.themillennialperspective.org.
Gotcha.
I broke it down where it's sort of like an online catalog. So let's say like, you feel like, I need a little inspiration on relationships or something like that. So I have a topic on relationships. I talk about love and the single season and preparing for a relationship. I talk about that. I have, as far as I have spirituality. So that was like one of my favorites. It's called The Waiting Season. It's How Are You Waiting? And it's talking about the waiting season. Gotcha. And that one is like really, really personal. That one talked about my experience in my late 20s. I have a lot of friends that, that got married before me or had families or went into entrepreneurship before me. And it's like, how is your posture while you're in the waiting season? So that was a really personal piece that I wrote, just talking about your posture and God during the waiting season. I also I dabble a little bit in social justice, just a little bit.
Well, that's right. Yeah.
That one was inspired because I started trying to grow plants and stuff. So
that's one of the ones I read. Yeah.
Yeah. And my plant kind of inspired me. With that. What other topics I have? I talked about just being authentic. I think that was another one of my favorites. Is talking about just stepping into your own calling in life. Everyone has their own individual calling, and not to be afraid of who you are, or not to be afraid of your uniqueness. I think it's amazing with my fellow millennials, just seeing people being successful, just being themselves.
Yeah, right.
People go on YouTube, make videos being themselves, and they just explode. And I think that's just a beautiful thing. Like, you don't have to be nobody else but yourself. God made you the way you are for a particular reason, so we should definitely tap into it. So that's one of the things that I've talked about as well.
Right. So that's cool. I love it. It sounds to me, so I definitely know you're bridging the gap, right? Between the various generations, the various ages. You're also sharing your experiences. Do you find it to be, not to get psychoanalytical, but do you find it to be therapeutic or cathartic to write some of your thoughts? Like,
absolutely.
Gotcha.
Before I write anything, like, I pray about it first.
Gotcha.
And it's like, I'm not one of those where I have a particular date I'm just gonna write. So
right.
I have a notebook by my nightstand. I have a notebook in my living room. I keep a notebook in my bag, and I have notes in my phone because thoughts come randomly to me. I could be asleep and then something boom comes, and I'm like, oh, I gotta write this down. So it's very therapeutic because my brain works constantly, like it's constantly moving. So for me, it's a release. Like, get to release these thoughts, get to release these feelings, and it's a way to connect. Also, it's a really great way to connect with people, and just knowing, like, people, getting feedback from others saying, wow, like, this really, inspired me, this helped me. The feedback is really, really valuable. Just knowing that, wow, okay, this is what you want me to do, God.
Right.
Because even, like, just thinking about my original plan, how it just went totally left. Like,
the original plan?
Okay. Let me give you a little background story.
Okay.
Originally, I was going to make a women empowerment blog.
Okay.
And I had different topics and stuff. I met one of my homegirls. We was brainstorming and everything. And every time I sat down to write, nothing came out.
I got you.
Okay. And I was just praying. I'm like, all right, guys, like, what's up? I know you gave me something, but like, what's going on? And so I just let it rest for a while. And then I had met up with one of my other friends, and we were just talking, and he was kind of getting me together, like, just because he always saw the potential in me and, like, things that I can do. And I started talking about the little ideas that I had, and we kind of pieced it together. And then I went home and prayed about it. And then the Millennial Perspective just came. Like, God just started downloading all these different things, and I just started writing it all down, and that's how it came to be. And it wasn't really a devotional blog. It was more of just bringing a voice for millennials at first, just giving you the millennial perspective.
Right.
But when I actually started writing, and I saw, like, the foundation started having, like, biblical principles and stuff like that, I was like, oh, so this is what you really want me to do. Right. So I just kind of just let God take control and just go from there. And it's a challenge for me. I know that he really is challenging me because I'm just so, like, when it comes to God's word, like, I'm just so serious. Like, I text Pastor, like, is this theologically accurate? Like, right. I just want to make sure anything that I'm saying to people is clear, biblically based and authentic, and not just opinion, but really,
right,
makes sense. Pretty much.
Right.
So yeah, that's
really cool because like I said, I'd read the plant one. I read a couple more, and I was like, oh, this is really deep. And it did seem, even though I know it's for the millennial perspective, as a male and as someone from Gen X, I'm like, okay, I see truths, I see foundation. I'm like, oh, this is really dope. And I was really impressed with the content and also the message. And then I also see that you were trying to support entrepreneurs. You have something called Melanin.
The Melanin Market. It's like one of my favorite pieces.
Okay.
So I'm all about building community. I've always been about providing resources for people.
Sure.
So the Melanin Market is a platform to kind of like advertise different Black-owned businesses. So I hit up some friends like, hey, can I just promote your business on my page? And I think it's really dope, like just to connect people to other bloggers and other entrepreneurs. I think it's because we're all in this together. Sure. And I feel like us as a Black community really need to push each other much more, put our work out there more. So that's like one of my favorite pieces too.
Yeah, I was surprised because it's not just one or two. You got like a comprehensive list. I was like, okay, this is impressive. So
it's growing. I'm excited about it.
Nice. No, it's very impressive. I was like, okay. I was like, man, I'm gonna put my stuff out there in terms of.
Send me your stuff so I can post it up there. I want to have as much as possible.
Definitely. So I think about you being an influencer, right? And I always like to ask guests, who was somebody that influenced you? Just because we're telling your story, right? So who's somebody that influenced you? Or it could be more than one person. Who's some individuals that may have influenced you?
So there's a lot of people that has influenced me in different seasons of my life. But I have two people that stick out the most. One for me professionally is my former boss from Hip Hop for Life, Tamika. Right. Hip Hop for Life. She's my former boss, and she's also a mentor to me.
What's that name, Monique? Lisa? What you say? Tamika.
Nice. Just to be under a Black woman who's an entrepreneur and to be able to just get all the knowledge from her was just a great experience. I started off as her assistant. Wow. And she taught me a lot about business. She taught me about budgeting. She taught me, and what I love the most is that she challenged me. She always pushed me out of my comfort zone. It was tough. It was tough. But I appreciate and I respect and I admire that because she saw potential in me and she always wanted to push that out. She made me do things that weren't comfortable, like speaking in front of people. Remember? The event I had an event, I am not a victim, I'm victorious. The event to talk about knowing your rights and dealing with police officers. And I was put on the spot to be the MC, and that wasn't the plan. And I was like, they were like, no, this is your event, you're going. But that's what I loved about, and that was the culture of the organization, just really like pushing you and challenging you. She's the reason why I know about creating programs and writing curriculum and doing events. She's the reason why, because she saw it in me and she pushed me and she challenged me to do it. Nice. So professionally, I would say her. And personally, I would say my grandfather. Gotcha. Because I have this new motto because of him called live life with and on purpose. Mm-hmm. And that is like a depiction of his life, as really like his life narrative. He literally lived life with and on purpose.
That's Dawson.
Charles B. Dawson. Even down to the little things, like no matter how busy he was, he made time to do things that made him feel alive. He went fishing. He traveled. He did so much. Like he spent time with his family. Like he lived a full life, and I admire that. And as you know, the cool thing about being an adult, you get to know people in your family as individuals. Yeah. So it was interesting. Last year, 2019, I was more intentional about spending time with my family, and I spent a lot more time with him and my grandmother last year. And just sitting and listening to his stories, like he always had a story. He always had something to share. Right. And I was just like, it just told me like, Monique, do you have a life worth telling? Like, it was just inspiring. Like, I want to be able to sit with my grandkids and tell them different life experiences and just have stories to share and to pass down. So I thought that was really amazing about him. And that's something that I want to take on. I want to make sure I live a life of purpose and that I live a full life and that I live a life worth telling.
Nice. So I know we talk about, and Pastor Dawson was a big influence on me, and I know Hip Hop for Life you were able to bless me to work with the opportunity to work with urban ambassadors. And that changed my life, right? So I really appreciate, and I have some connectivity. I'm like, yeah, I can relate. So I appreciate you sharing your journey. Every journey, though, has some bumps, right? So what has been a challenge or challenges, but what's maybe one challenge that you found yourself like, that you had to overcome, and now you can, that test has become a testimonial. So if you care to share with the audience.
Sure. Coming out of my comfort zone.
Gotcha.
That's the hardest, because you know me, I was always shy. Right. You cannot put a microphone in front of me, I would start crying. That's how I was traumatized by it. So just coming out of my comfort zone, just even going ahead and doing the blog. Like I had like my best friend Keisha, you know, Keisha Bryant.
Sure.
Like she was my accountability partner, making sure that I actually do it, because I have a lot of ideas, but it's just actually getting it done.
Sure.
So, and that was like my goal for this year, 2020, to just step out of my comfort zone. I started, you know, connecting with people in different places. I joined the book club, and that was really good for me too. The book club helped me to articulate my thoughts more, because I have a lot in my head that I just don't share. Right. So that helped me practice to articulate and talk to people that I don't really know, you know, like that. So, you know, step out of my comfort zone. Just, that's been a challenge for me, like my whole life. Gotcha. And it's like now, and I always, you know, love being in the background, just keep me in the background. But now it's like, okay, it's time for you to stop that, and just the things that God wants you to do, you can't be silent about.
No, you can't. Especially, I think, in this era, I think it's almost a sin not to share what God has put on your heart, right? I remember, I don't know if you probably don't remember this, but this is going back. You were probably, I don't know, 6 or 7, and I was in charge of Sunday school for the youth Sunday, and they were like, pick somebody. I was like, Monique Hamler, and I was like, come on up, and you was like, nah, bro. I was like,
no, you're not getting me.
And you were like, no, and I was like, and I finally found somebody, but it was like to see you go from that to someone who's articulating their point of view, their perspective, and not for themselves, but for a generation. I think it's incredible. And then I think what makes it even doubly dope for all of you out there that's hip hop vernacular, for really cool. And I think it's really that you're also finding your voice, but you're helping others, right, to find their voice. I feel like it's a biblical command, like he said, lift him up and he'll draw all people to me. And then when we lift them up, and we let our light shine, we glorify our Father in heaven. So I think you're definitely on the right track. And I told you, vision. I don't know if I'm gonna say it here, but if it happens, you know a prophet lives in Brooklyn. I'm being silly, no, but I definitely do see great things for you. I definitely feel, even if it's not in the pulpit, as I can see that in the future. If it's not, this is definitely a ministry. I think a lot of times, I like what you said about titles. A lot of times we have to reinvent, right? Ministry is just a fancy word for being a servant of God. Right? So we can service God in so many ways. And I don't know about you, but I know this quarantine has allowed me to really think about ways to reinvent. Not so much, you can't reinvent the gospel, but reinvent and reinterpret ways I can share it, spread it, live it, and give it. So Monique, there's a lot of takeaways. I really appreciate this. But before we go, I want you, if you could, I'm sure there's a young lady or a young man, or maybe not so young, from a different generation. Is there any parting piece of advice you would give someone?
Yes. First thing I would say, just like in my blog, no one can be you better than you. Be authentic. Don't be afraid of who you are. God made you who you are for a reason. Your uniqueness is divine, so I would say tap into it. That's one thing. The second thing, which is more of a reminder to everyone, relationships is key. And when I say relationships, as I mean connecting with people, I think this quarantine or this pandemic has definitely shown us how much what's the word I'm looking for? We took advantage of human connection. And I think we should remember to value the people in our lives.
Yeah.
Remember that everyone comes to your life for a reason.
Yeah.
So be careful, how you treat people. You never know when that connection will come up later on in life. So relationships is key. We were never meant to go through life alone.
Right.
That was never the plan. We was always meant to have relationship, whether it's through friendship or companion, whatever it is. We were always meant to connect with one another. So those are the two things, just to remind ourselves, just relationships is key. I want us to build back that sense of community, that sense of village that was once prevalent, but now it's just, I don't know what happened to it, but just bring back that sense of community with one another. And no one can be you better than you.
Love it. I love it. Millennials ain't that bad,
You see, we're not that bad.
No, I'm being silly. I really, Monique, all jokes aside, thank you for your time. Thank you for the jewels that were shared. And we need to don't take those things for granted. Really appreciate life. And I thank you. And hopefully.
Thank you for having me. This was great.
I appreciate you.
This was awesome.
I appreciate you coming through it. I was like, okay. I was about to take some notes, but luckily I get to replay it and hear it. A lot of gems were dropped. So I really appreciate that. Thank you again. Everybody else, check out the Millenial Perspective. Great blog. The information's underneath. Hit Monique up if you got ideas. Can people hit you up for ideas if they want?
I'm on Instagram.
Gotcha.
What is it? The Millennial Millennial _perspective. I'll write it down.
And we'll put it. We'll put it right there. So we'll put it in the YouTube box so people check it out. And Monique Hamler, thank you very much. Millennial Perspective. Everybody, remember, no one can be you but you. Serve God for the best of your life, for the rest of your life. See you next episode. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Monique.